hype for e-commerce will not always remain the same. So therefore, being a reality check is very, very important for all brands, whether they are D2C, retailers, or e-commerce companies, to continuously go on evolving themselves and create for themselves an environment which will keep them sustainable and growth ready at all points of time. So, you know, and now we have our panel over here through whom we are going to actually ask that as retailers who were probably, you know, we have two retailers here who were offline first and then they went online, and they actually got a very different piece of e-commerce fitted into their organizations, which then created a great synergy for the customer. At the same time, there's Saurabh from LiveSpace, who actually started online first and then also started building experience centers. And we have Anshuk, who's actually helping all of them to be able to do their work with creativity and with a great amount of sustainable practices being built in their organizations. So I'm going to start with you, Rajesh. You know, at Lacoste, we've always seen, you know, you create a look for the ear. You've always sort of built merchandise in a way that makes the customer feel good about themselves wearing, you know, your t-shirts or the trousers or even shoes, now that I see it. So particularly in a phygital world, you know, where physical stores are very important, and we've seen them making a big comeback after COVID. You know, we see all formats of stores out there. And we also see a lot of digitization where customer is actually looking over there on the screen, but probably coming and trying in the store. So where do you think this connection is actually being built? Why does the customer need to see online and need to come, feel the need to come and buy in the store? What makes that sort of connection, and how do you help to achieve that connection for the customer?
Sure. Thank you, Ritu. Good morning, friends. My name is Rajesh Jain. I work for a brand called Lacoste. It's an international premium lifestyle brand. So, Ritu, when you talk about customer looking online and coming offline, it's actually vice versa is what we see. Sometimes customers would look offline, they will explore what is good, and when they go home at their leisure, they would perhaps buy online also. Typically what is happening is what we see, especially in India, there are 3 C's that are happening, not your C's that you said in the beginning, it's a different C's I am talking about. So what we see, there is a different trend, actually not different, this trend has been emerging quite a lot now, though it's not different from the past, but it is coming with more velocity. And those 3 C's that I'm talking about are collection, convenience, and care. When I say collection, we offer different merchandise, different kind of products, and Lacoste is famous for relaxed elegance. Lacoste is famous for freedom of movement. And we offer those kind of new merchandise every season, and within the season we have sub-launches. Now, this is one part of it, and I'll come back to your question also related to these only. Because the second part is where your question comes in, is convenience. Today for customers, shopping is not a shopping per se. It's more of a leisure activity. Customers do not specifically go out for shopping, or they don't necessarily browse only for shopping. They do it in their leisure time. And this is where your question also fits in, and this is where my second C of convenience also fits in, because inconvenience is completely opposite of leisure. So we have to provide a great convenience to the customer, whether the customer is walking into a physical store or they're browsing online in a very, at their own time, at their own space and their own pace. That is where the customers, either when they're coming to the mall or to a physical store and they see that the product is good, but they're not necessarily in the mood of shopping at that time. That product or that kind of environment that will register in their mind, and when they go home or when they go to their office, that is where they are able to connect. That this is the product I saw offline, I want to buy it, and vice versa. If during their leisure time they are browsing online, they may not necessarily be convinced of buying that product at that time, But once the product registers in their mind and the brand registers in their mind, they would go offline, and that is where they would like to try out the product also, how it looks on them, how it fits well. And if it's a shoe or if it's a bag, how does it look on them? And that is how it gets connected very easily with them. So that convenience factor is actually driving the customers from offline to online and online to offline. In fact, because of our own database now, which we can analyze to some extent through our own website, we have a beautiful Club Lacoste program, which is a loyalty program for us. We are able to analyze that a lot of customers are channel agnostic. They would buy online also, offline also. So that proves the fact that customers are not necessarily looking for an offline store or an online store, but they do buy from both the sides. Although this is not the question, but because I want to finish my 3 C's, the third C is care. This is a global trend, and that is catching on fast in India also now. And care, when I say, it's the care for the environment. The customers, even in India, now they have started becoming conscious, especially the Gen Z and the millennial customers. They would like to understand that how this product was made, whether it has organic yarn, whether the yarn that is used is recyclable or recycled, and they're also willing to pay a little extra for those kind of products because they turn out to be more expensive because the cost of production is very high there. So these 3 C's put together, they make the customers come back to their stores again and again, and that makes them channel agnostic, that makes them loving towards the brand.
Sure, no, I think that's a really valid point, and I think taking the environment is extremely important today. In the entire scheme of things. Now, of course, as you mentioned, it's both offline to online and vice versa that works. So, my question to you is, what kind of technology investments have you been making in the last few years? And while you were making these investments, what have you been able to come, resultantly, what have you been able to say, and you can say it with confidence, that these were the most authentic investments we made, and these were probably junk investments, and therefore retailers don't need to make it?
So, wonderful question. First part is very, very easy. I think, I don't think any brand or any retailer can live without technology now. And it's not the question of one big technology. We use technology in almost all the aspects of our entire retail journey, whether it is a point of sale, whether it's a loyalty program, whether it is supply chain. Almost on everything you are investing in technology. When you talk about junk investment, I think this varies from brand to brand, retailer to retailer, and category to category. For example, if I give you a live example, let's say you go to a large format store, I wouldn't name the brand, but if I go to a large format store and it's selling something related to athleisure, they would have, let's say, a check-in, they would not have any cash desk, they would have auto check-in counters. And that's a beautiful experience for the customers. Even I go and buy it from them, and when I don't have to go to the check-in counter or cash desk, I feel very good about it. However, that perhaps is relevant and important for that particular channel of retail. For our kind of a brand, which is premium, and similarly for some luxury brands also, perhaps that part of technology is not needed right now. So we don't want to go through that way where we first give the solution and then start defining the problem itself. So in our case, we are very sure that we would like to first define the problem. We would like to understand whether A, it helps in customers' convenience and their customers' journey, and B, would like to also understand, not necessarily always, but either it is customer delight, and the second part is ROI. So when you talk about junk investment, since we are very conscious about it, we don't immediately go in for any technology that comes in our way. We analyze it properly, we see whether it is relevant to our customers or no, then only we implement it, and hence junk investment is actually not there in our case. We are very careful about it, that whatever solution, technological solution or otherwise we take, that has to start delivering either on ROI or on customer delight.
I think that's a fantastic approach, because obviously you don't want to jump into a technology and then you realize that, it's not going to be beneficial for you. So I'm going to come on to Mr. Amitav Suri. He leads US Polo ASSN, and it's a brand that, I see today a lot of people are adorning it. So, kudos to you, Mr. Suri, for actually putting it out there on all our bodies and, making us see the brand in a big way. But I have also been noticing that, you know, you've been expanding the whole brand proposition very fast in India, whether it is through stores or whether it is online. I see the lookbook very nicely displayed on a visual level, you know, about what matches with what and how do you carry that look. So particularly now that you're building that experience for the customer, both in the store as well as on the screen, so what are the aspects that you sort of carry on both, and what are the aspects that you carry only digitally, you know, to make the customer experience US Polo ASSN, and what are the aspects that you only carry in the store? And having done that, how do you do this seamlessly?
Thanks, Ritu. Thanks for the question. Yeah, that's an interesting one because lines are blurring between how consumers perceive brands both online and offline. Before I go ahead, just to tell everyone out here, we actually go where the consumer is. So I don't really understand these compartmentalization of what we call online, offline. It's just the consumer, like Rajesh said about convenience factor. We are where the consumer is. So now that we have figured out we want to be where the consumer is, we try and make their journeys more comfortable and palatable. To answer your first point, how do we differentiate? Well, a store is a very finite space. The constraint is, of course, space. The constraint is probably one LED screen, if you've got it, or one visual, or maybe two visuals. So your communication is, to that extent, limited to how you want to take the lookbook or the brand stories forward. And you ultimately come and dress up with that $1 million shot. So if you go to one of our stores, you'll see a $1 million shot of the protagonist wearing US Polo, you know, in all its glory. Now, when the same journey happens online, because now it's completely inelastic, right? You got people walking in from affiliate marketing, they come to our .com website through Google, they come through Facebook, Instagram. So the arrival at the point of sale is differentiated. So here, you have no sense of smell, you have no sense of space, no sense of customer care, you have no sense of visual and largeness. So you got to be more tactical about the whole experience. Now, the journey on which he comes on a landing page, from there he's intrigued or she's intrigued to go on to, forgive me, I keep saying he because most of my consumers are he, no offense to ladies out there. But when they come in, the entire journey unfolds from there onwards. So touch points have to be far more agile, they've got to be far more nimble. Content becomes king because that's the only thing which will probably compete against sense of smell, sense of largeness, sense of store shopping, sense of going out there. So you got to dazzle that consumer or make the product or the service relevant to that person at that point in time. So we spend a lot of our energies trying to build on how to keep engaging with that consumer online. Consumer engagement online could be two parts again. One is what we do at marketplaces with the likes of Myntra and others. It's a large number. We drive here about 1,000 crore GSV business on the online space. 99% comes from marketplace. Only 1% comes from our own .com, largely because we are only about 6 months old in the .com business. But we've been selling on the marketplace. Our learnings from the likes of Myntra have been interesting. How the consumer is walking in, who's shopping, what are they shopping for, which consumer cohorts am I interacting as a brand, which consumer cohorts do I want to attract as a brand. So we've done a lot of experiments with puff marketing, we've done experiments with carousels, browsers, sponsoring events. We've done the whole 9 yards. Now that we come back, maybe 24 months more experience, understanding the mistakes we have made and the learnings we've got, it still doesn't give me a simple formula out. So we are back on the drawing board every single day, figuring out how do we keep engaging with the consumer, because the second the engagement becomes interesting, the click button for shopping happens, and that's when the money comes home. So largely, Ritu, to answer your question, simply it's just to constantly deep dive onto what's working, what's not working, keep eliminating what's not working, and keep pushing on what's working.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the age-old rule and always works for everyone. But you know, also I've seen US Polo has been expanding globally. So you know, in global markets, what is it that you see in terms of practices, let's say even, you know, developed markets or maybe developing markets, and which do you think also sort of those practices are relevant to India that you've got from there? And while of course, you know, our population is unbeatable, so our practices will probably be foremost. So, but still you feel, you know, some digital practices that were in some other market and you brought it to India.
So, very proud to announce to everyone out here that US Polo is a licensee taken by the Arvind Fashions Group. We are now the third largest licensee in the globe. So you can applaud to us, thank you so much. So yes, we are the third largest, of course, after the North American markets. You know, the interesting part of US Polo is far more premium in the Indian shores versus them overseas. We don't have, I mean, the kind of partnership Arvind has provided to US Polo is probably the best in class. We have actually brought US Polo and made it look extremely premium in the consumer's eyes. The one big learning for us was the largest of stores. You know, Indian markets have been very thrifty on retail. Square footage of 1,000 square feet would be a risk because suddenly your revenue to rent becomes a problem. You know, the cost of retail space is only increased maybe 6 times of inflation. So you, as a prudent business house, you're always wanting to lower your risks. So you end up taking smaller stores. Of late, we have now taken large stores. We opened our first 6,000 square feet store in Jayanagar, Bangalore. We're going to open 2 more in the next 2 months. We are now trying to make large stores happen. We want to make the theater of retail come to life. The one learning I have from the international markets is that consumers no longer want to just buy a product when they come to you. They want to see, like Rajesh said, what are you all about? What are you sourcing from? Give me a story about why I should buy this red polo versus that black polo. So storytelling, you know, without me talking about it, has to be very visual. For a visual story to take place, I must have space. So the one learning, Ritu, is that we want to open larger square foot stores. We also believe it's better to open 1 large square feet store than open 10 small ones, because the math works out in our favor that we're able to draw better productivity from these stores. On the online side, I guess we have been, you know, I don't think we are learning too much from the West, because quite honestly, they're not as aggressive in the online space as we are. Wow. We've got better technology. Yeah, we've got better technology. We got better, all the brains are with us. So I'm not really worried about not learning enough from them. But the learning from the West, and all humility I say, is the way they go about understanding and engaging with the consumers. Now, technology does not solve that. Technology is an enabler. So technology will beat everybody, but the nuances of retail, the beauty of VM, the combination and ensembles we create, the trying to attract consumers just by a visual proposition, those are things we keep learning from the West, and we'll continue to do so till we are best at it.
You know, the point that you made, Amitav, makes me say that, you know, sometimes we always think of the first mover advantage, but I think there is always advantage in being a second mover, third mover, fourth mover, because you basically operating in a different space, and those times can actually give you some modalities which probably never existed for the first mover at all. So, you know, for those of you who are still sort of wanting to break your way into e-commerce, D2C, don't stop, just go ahead. There's some learning and opportunity that exists in the market which you can always take up. I know some of you are dying to ask questions, so I'm going to come to you very quickly. But Saurabh, I'm going to jump on to you. You know, LiveSpace was now an online brand, and I remember first consuming and meeting Anuj, one of your founders, many years ago, only who talked about, you know, how they were building the entire experience of the place or of a location, whether it's a house or an office, online. But I also noticed that you went omni very quickly. You built up experience centers. So how are you sort of trying to draw a parallel between the experience of the store and online? And what is it that eventually you want to achieve through the store, which is the reason why you went offline?
Sure. No, very good question actually. Just an introduction, I'm Saurabh. I work with LiveSpace. We are the largest home interiors and renovation platform in India. We recently crossed 1,000 crore mark in a very fragmented and unorganized industry. And I don't think that would have been possible if we weren't able to marry both the components, the digital, the online and the offline one. And I'll sort of give you a quick context about our category. Slightly different is, when you do home interiors, it's a very high AOV. It goes to a few meaningful lakhs of purchase. It's also infrequent. You're going to probably do it 1 or twice at max in your life. It's also very emotional in nature. You have already spent a lot on your home, and now you're further going to upgrade it. So it's a very, very different category compared to many others. And if you see about internet first, internet is accessible, has a massive reach, it's very convenient, right? So we first use internet to just go to the people and announce that we are there. So which means they discover LiveSpace through internet. A lot of inspiration, a lot of content is required in our category, a lot of visual content. And that part, internet serves really well. I don't think there's any other medium right now which does it better than internet. With the power of technology, with phones in everybody's hand, we can probably reach anywhere and to anybody and get them inspired, because that's a very visual category. And that's where the journey of LiveSpace essentially starts. So it's a very digital first journey, but that doesn't get you sales, as simple as that. Because when you need to do such a high AOV kind of transaction, you have to go to the tactile experience of the purchase as well, which means you need to meet the designer, you need to see the products, you need to see the installation. And that's when the offline part of the journey comes in the form of experience centers, where, we will share, we have different kind of formats as well, a larger one and a smaller as well. But quickly the customer goes to the offline part where they meet their designers and touch and feel the product, right? And after they see a demonstration of that, they are more convinced, likely to buy. And then the cart, the e-commerce cart, as you say, again goes to the online world, which they can browse at home, discuss with family members, because again, it makes more convenient, it is more visual in nature, it has 3D aspects to things, etc., which an offline world does not provide. And then customer does all the sort of modifications and again come to the offline world to do the final transaction. So a very interesting journey, if you see with LiveSpace's, customer is seamlessly moving from digital to offline to again digital to offline, right? And that continues for, to everybody's surprise, good 6 to 9 months, where customer is actually on both the medium. And another interesting point, which probably I want to highlight as is sort of no-brainer, is customer is probably everywhere. They're online as well, and they're offline as well. Both the mediums have a lot of strengths, and they also have a lot of limitations. So I think to your question, which you asked earlier, is it's very important to understand the strengths of each medium and leverage it well to your use case. For example, in our case, digital serves really well to inspire customers, and offline serves really well to do the transaction, as simple as that. And we double down on that. And if I just reverse those two use cases, if I use offline to discover and digital to transaction, it won't be a good idea. It would fail as well in many ways. So I think that's a bit about us and how we sort of leverage both the channels seamlessly. We currently have close to 60 to 70 experience centers in India, and I think we'll open close to 150 to 200 more. So we're gonna double down on our experience centers, offline presence actually, because we also realize it is important for customers to reach us quickly when they want to do the purchase, not really travel for an hour or 2 or more. And especially in kind of today's environment, we all know about Bangalore. I took 2 hours to reach here, right? Customer wants to reach a place not more than 15, 20, 25 minutes maybe. That's a comfort zone, right? So there's an accessibility angle also to it. So we are doubling down our experience centers. What we are also doing is we are tweaking the formats also, and we are seeing, of course, I mean, with retail, the tags are a bit longer, so the cost of experiment is really high. But so there's a large format experience center also, which allows us to do more coverage, more categories. But there's a smaller format of experience center also, which largely focus on our hero products in many ways. And both have its own merits in the kind of zone that you are in. So our experience center is also becoming very nuanced to not the city, but the zone of the city that we are present in, because our kind of work is heavily dependent on the real estate inventory that is coming into that area. So we have to fine tune to that as well. And I think another vector which is also coming in our case is price point variation. So we are going a price point up and a price point down also. So that vector is also entering into retail with us. So in a way, I think 5 to 7 kind of retail formats is what we are slowly entering into.
That's fantastic. You know, I've always wondered on this, Saurabh, that with the kind of services that you provide, with the kind of reach that you provide, particularly digitally, and now given the fact that India is a value-oriented customer, you know, at least that's the bigger part of the pyramid that we are in. How, and then now having experience centers and big ones, because your category is like that, how do you make it sort of viable as an entire business? And I'm not saying profitable, I'm saying viable. Just to be able to give all that to the customer and yet build a business which is substantial and, you know, where you get your economics right.
Definitely, great question again. See, I think fortunately for us, retail is not about shelf space. Our kind of retail is more about experience center. So we can definitely take out more at a per square feet level, and our kind of categories are more personalized in nature. So for the core product and the configuration, we use the square feet space. But for the personalization components, we leverage technology back again. So that sort of increases, you know, for example, if you're going to purchase a kitchen or a wardrobe, you see one shutter, but there are hundreds of options of shutters, which is very difficult to put in offline retail because of the limitation of space. That you can browse in an online 3D environment in a way. So we have to marry those two components together to make best use of the space. Fortunately for us, we are not the shelf space kind of business where somebody has to really pick that particular product and apply it into their own space. So we are able to better utilize it. So our intent is to, you know, really show customers the capabilities that we have, and, you know, what you see is what you get in a way, the kind of quality, and the personalization and the other SQ variations, they can browse in a 3D environment and online as well. And that has worked really well for us, both in terms of cost, and also surprisingly, customers want to discuss these things with family, you know, and everybody has their own time limitations, etc. So these documents are not just circulated between customers and us. Within customer family groups, these documents are being circulated, and they're able to make a better consensus or decision out of it.
Fantastic. I'm going to come to you, Anshuk. You know, I today see a need for transition. You see, I mean, if I see here in this panel, there is a lot of transition happening, and I see in the industry a big transition happening. Everybody who is offline wants a unified, a D2C, a omni-channel strategy, and the reverse is also true. So, you know, today, how are you helping the brands to achieve this and to achieve it economically? I've realized the one thing with technology, and this is something I've been seeing over the years, is that every brand, every retailer today wants that whatever technology, and I think Rajesh made a great point on it, that should not be a junk investment at the end of the day. So therefore, it has to be meaningful, and it has to not be a cost center, but a profit center. If not now, maybe a year down the line. So how do you ensure that when you're giving technology solutions, that aspect is achieved?
Absolutely, Ritu. Thank you so much. Just a quick intro. My name is Anshuk. I'm one of the co-founders of AdYogi. Over the last 10 years, we have worked with D2C and retail brands to enable online and omni journeys for them. We work very closely with Meta and Google. Coming to the specific question, Ritu, I'll tell you the evolution I've seen in the last 10 years. 2016, 17, 18, we used to work with a lot of online first D2C brands. They had great Shopify websites. They were able to convert customers. Acquisition costs were low. But what we saw was a market shift during the COVID years. We saw a lot of offline first brands, retailers actually get serious about their websites. They now had very good converting websites. They had cash on delivery available. So we saw that retail brands actually caught up very rapidly during those 2020, 2021, 2022 years. Last 2 years, we have actually seen that the real bridge between D2C and retail happening, which is actually the topic of the summit, very aptly put as well. So we see online first brands like, we work with this brand Malmal, a women fashion ethnic brand, opening offline stores. They have 15 stores. And of course, retail brands having great website experiences, talking about increasing the share of their online revenue. Thankfully, Meta and Google has also pushed their lever very aggressively in the Omni journey. So I'll talk about two specific enablements we are doing with Meta and Google in India. Number one, we did this with a large men retail brand in Bangalore, based out of Bangalore, where we said that, look, you have been running a lot of ads on Meta. You have, of course, driving a lot of revenue on your .com website, and you have a good set of 80 odd stores across the country. Is your online ads driving offline sales? And with Meta, they have conversions API, which they have rolled out, where you can actually integrate the POS data back into the systems in a privacy-friendly manner. And you can measure how much of your online ad spends are actually driving your store footfall sales. And in this specific case, we saw an incremental 2x of ROAS coming from your offline stores for your online ads. And what that enables the brand to do is they can now optimize their spends better. I'll give you a very small example, right? They don't have a store in tier 3 cities in India. So we saw that while the ROS was good, their offline incremental ROS was practically zero because they didn't have a store. Versus in the metro cities, they were able to drive an additional 2x ROS, like I just said. So they could divert more of their spends into cities where they have stores. So that's one example where we saw some amazing results coming from Omni marketing. The second, just to quickly summarize it, is this whole concept of which Google has rolled out. It's very, very established in the Western markets like US. Imagine you are going to google.com and you are searching for a white shirt. Today you see an ad of a marketplace or a D2C website where you can click and purchase. But if you are doing the same search in the US, you would see that this particular white shirt is available at a store half a mile away. And you can actually walk into the store and purchase that exact white shirt. So this is, in Google's language, it's called as local inventory ads, where you search on Google and not only you see results corresponding to D2C and marketplace, you also see results corresponding to offline stores. And there is a lot of study that this actually leads to incremental footfall. So we are now piloting this with the likes of Shoppers Stop and Westside in India, and how do we enable this sort of an Omni solution for them?
That's a fantastic technology. Yeah, that's truly a good one, because that sort of feeds both your online as well as offline together. So, we've also seen something on dynamic pricing. We see sometimes a product which is being sold in and I remember I was standing in one of the stores, without naming a footwear store, and this lady, she tried on the footwear and she said, what is the price? And he said 5,000 rupees. And she said, I'll get it cheaper online, so I don't want to buy it here. So, now, is dynamic pricing a real thing, where you might want to sometimes take a decision in the store and change it according to the mood of the customer, rather than actually waiting for the customer to go out and then probably discover a competitor brand, lesser or whatever? How do you sort of then try to help the brand to achieve that same at that point of time, that decision making? How can we make the store manager more powerful to achieve that?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, this is, Ritu, I think this was very commonly seen, I would say, in 2019, 2021, when brands were still discovering omni-channel. What I've seen in the last couple of years is two things. Number one, for the same product in store and marketplace and website, almost every retailer who I interact with, they are trying to maintain a price parity. One product, one pricing. In fact, Google is also very, very particular about it. They have this merchant center report where they highlight these anomalies. But what brands have been able to do is two interesting things. One, in many cases, they have an online, separate online collection. Right? We work with TCNS group, W for Women Aurelia. They have a separate collection for online where you can be more flexible in pricing because you don't need to maintain price parity with the retail outlets. Second, we have seen that even the merchandising could be very differently set. For example, in some cases, you may want to push more of your OSM on marketplaces, old season inventory. On your website, you might want to put more of your fresh season sales. And on store, of course, you may want to have a blend of that depending on how your footfalls are converting in the store. But for the same product, we have now seen that 99% of the cases there is price parity. And I personally believe that that's the right way to go. You cannot penalize your customers for buying from your brand store or vice versa from your store as well.
Do you agree on this dynamic pricing bit?
So I completely agree with Danshuk because we also believe in one brand, one voice. We have exactly the same merchandise across offline and online stores, and we don't differentiate it either in merchandise or in pricing or anything else. Even the experience, once the customer comes to our website, lacoste.in, they need to get a premium experience, and we continue to upgrade our website also by learning from the customer's journey, etc. And similarly for offline also, we're upgrading the experience, we're expanding and we are opening new stores and we're renovating our existing stores. But pricing and merchandising would remain exactly the same across the channels. There are some brands we see who still do some differentiated pricing online channels. But I think for our kind of brand, it doesn't work that way, because we feel that our customer, price of course is an important factor, but our customer is more worried about the value for money, not the money itself, not the price itself, but the value for money. If they get good value for money, they don't necessarily go for a slightly cheaper price online or a slightly cheaper price elsewhere. However, we do have our outlet concept where we sell, as Anshuk also said, that we have old season merchandise. That's offline stores, where if you want to buy an offline old season merchandise, you go and buy it from there. But I completely agree with Anshuk and what you said, that dynamic pricing may not necessarily work everywhere. In fact, customers start complaining if something of that sort happens. So in the long run, I believe if you do differentiated pricing or differential pricing online or offline, it might hurt the brand in the long run, because the customer would be confused whether to buy online, offline, this site or that site, because there are several sites selling the same product. So I also completely believe that we should not do differentiated pricing.
So dynamic pricing is a controversial one, right? I wish I had a simple reply. The answer is no. There are certain times marketplaces put on coupon codes, right, which gives the consumer a price off. An offline retailer cannot and should not match it. You should go back and ask the marketplace why it's happening, and that's the tug of war we play every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So that's not going to sort out. Dynamic pricing is a different aspect in offline retail, where we have given a product 8 weeks to trade. And in those 8 weeks, if they don't reach a certain ROS or they don't hit a certain sell-through, it's incumbent on the brand to start either pulling it back from stores who are expensive retail spaces, move it on offline with the price off, or a store which is in a slightly more far-flung area where the cost of retail is not that big a deal. The logistics of pulling back merchandise is a problem. So we let that store get a discount. So there will be no way that a product in a Delhi and a product in a Bangalore and a product in a Guwahati will have the same price on the same day. Now, if I say that, it's a pipe dream. You're going to end up losing a lot of revenue and a lot of questions will come up. We are a local business. We all sit out here in a Bangalore today, but what happens in a dynamic world in a Vijayawada, what's happening in a Faridabad, what's happening in a Surat, are different cohorts of consumers. We don't have to oversimplify things for them. Let them go through the whole consumption cycle. The chances of somebody raising a complaint to a consumer court are very high. So I'm happy looking at those as a one-off case, but dynamic pricing can actually corrupt a lot more things than it can do good for. So the jury's out there. We'll see how the world shapes up. At this point of time, I would say no, but going forward, never say never.
Yeah, that's right. Saurabh?
I also agree. I mean, channel-wise pricing differences would actually hurt one channel or the other, and also the brand in the long term. So it doesn't make sense. Fortunately for us, that the conflict doesn't arise because we just sell on our platform, very frankly. But we definitely see a use case. We definitely see a use case to segment customers and create more brand extensions. That is definitely required. I think in our market and probably every market, to capture the pie the maximum. There is a premium customer, there is a luxury customer, there are value, affordable, etc. All those cuts are there. I think the cleanest would be to create separate extensions for them so that they can have a different experience altogether and does not get into any conflict. However, since we have a service component as well along with product, that varies city by city in the range of plus minus 5%, because the cost of labor in a Bombay versus in a Delhi or a Bangalore might differ a lot. But that's again, that's a very service component of the business, so that's a reality.